We will move on to, did you have anything else to report?
That's it. Yeah.
To our 7:05 meeting with Robert Tezewski, Director of our Water and Sewer Department, to discuss the system and the treatment plant progress. Good evening.
Good evening, John. Good evening, board members. Always a pleasure to come and see everybody here. Things are going very well, I think, over there. The treatment plant, and I did give a memo out to the board members over there on the bid results. I'm not sure if Dan had, before he left, had sent you all the actual bid results, so I just included it again, just in case it wasn't fully, we had all the full information. But the plant has been started down there. I did try to share a few photos with you down there. We have the forms and the rebar in for the clear well, which is going to be basically where all the water is going to come into the plant and the pipe gallery there. We put 37 tons of rebar in. We have done the first pour this week. We have 4 more major pours coming up within the next 10 days on that there. And once we get that, we're going to start going vertical up on that. We are ahead of schedule. We had a meeting with the general GC, Waterline Industries, and with Tater Howard and ourselves. And we had hard discussions, and I think it benefited all 3 parties to get this done successfully and ahead of schedule and under budget there. So this has been very stressed to all the parties there. It's a top priority for the town to get this done and successfully and ahead of schedule there. Our goal right now is to get the building up and the roof done before winter so we can work through the winter on that there. The one holdup we were looking at is the pressure vessels for the filtration from Suez Corporation. We look like we get that under control now because once the roof is on, we cannot get the vessels in, so the vessels have to be put in order to put the roof. And to keep on the schedule, we have to have the building up, the roof on to work through the winter. And we're looking for hopefully December 1st, 2018 to be in full operation at that plant down there because obviously, and the main purpose obviously is for manganese removal and filtration there, and that's been a priority for town meeting members and also for the citizens throughout town. So that's progressing good. We're about 1.2 to 1.3 under a budget estimate, which was 12.8. It came in $11,499,77 over there. And Waterline has been a pleasure to work with there. I also have shared with the board the last 5 years of water usage, just as informational, just showing from January 1st to July 31st, the first 7 months of the 5 years, and you can see how much we're down this year. And obviously, weather plays a big factor in that. When you have wet weather, it certainly takes off the outside watering type of demands that we run across there. But with 315, that's the lowest we've been. You know, that you have to go back 20 some odd years, and we'd still be lower than that, to give you some idea. And the population has increased a lot, you know. And you can almost go back to 1980s, and we're still higher than that over there, just to show you how much we've done. That being said, and I just wanted to bring the board's attention again, because at some point in time, hopefully, you know, probably beginning of next year, we'll be looking for some type of rate study, possible rate increase, because we have a principal and interest coming up from the treatment plants in 2018, 2019. So we have to be aware of that down there. But the I&I still remains high. Even looking at this, I ran the numbers on our billing, it was still 31.7%. So even when the flows go down, the I&I, which is almost a third of our water, is still problematic. The state's recommendation, I think I've mentioned as board members before, is to be 10% or lower. I mean, we're 3 times that. So that factors into our day-to-day operations. It factors into any rate increase that we would possibly be looking at down there. And it's been mentioned certainly by members of town meeting, and citizens are concerned about it, you know, because if we're truly losing a third of the water, that's significant revenue. And if we're losing in leaks, that's, you know, electrical costs, chemical costs, you know. And we've done leak surveys. We've done an awful lot of work, and we continue to do work down there. Now, we just had a water management grant just completed with Weston Sampson, in which we did get all our meters into different zones, pressure zones as opposed to geographical. And I did try to send to you folks a bar chart kind of outlining that. And if you do look at that, you can see in the reduced high, we've got that down to almost 5%, 4 to 5% unaccounted for. If you look at the center of town, we're almost 50% over there. So we can see the problems are in the high and in the low. Reduced high seems to be a lot better to us. And before reduced high presented a series of problems, we spent a lot of times on leak and working on tank lines, transmission lines, so we think we've got that down, but still in the high and reduced high. So we're going to be doing another leak survey by the end of the year as required by our Water Management Act permit there. Working morely on transmission lines, that type of stuff like that down there. We're going to concentrate somewhat down the Edgemere area to see what's, because, you know, if you're losing that much water, it comes out to 988,000 gallons a day, almost 1 million gallons a day. We're pumping lower. I mean, no one calls for low pressure. No one calls, I see water running down the road. We don't pick up anything like that, so it's either, again, some type of interconnection that we don't know about, and it would have to feed a large area. We've gone to the surrounding towns. We've tested the water in Boylston. We've tested the water in Worcester. We've gone to Northborough, and we've gone to Westborough on this down there, picking up water samples on any possible interconnection and on all the boundaries, just to be sure and check ourselves on it. But when you go back, this problem, as far back as I can tell, started in the 1960s. Early 1960s, if you look at town reports, they report losing about a third of the water they couldn't account for. So that's before the treatment plant. That's before the home farm wells. That's when the wells were at South Street and Oak Street. So we changed the configuration, but the amount seems the same. So to us in the water department, it just seems something like older cast iron pipes, something that's been in from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, an older type setup over there. And actually, where we have the highest usage, just coincidentally, in the center, that's where we changed all the new meters. That's almost completely changed out, and that didn't make any difference at all for us for unaccounted for water, because you think it would. We had all the meters we changed out, very, very insignificant down there. So it's a continuing issue, and I just wanted again to discuss it with the board over there that we're not letting it go. At least I'm not letting it go because it's an important matter to the town. And the other thing is, obviously, if you could lower your water usage by 1 million gallons a day, it affects our water management permit, affects connections in town. It's a whole, opens up a whole another avenue for us. If instead of, say, 3.1, and I don't think it's a realistic number, but say we're pumping 2.1, there's an extra 1 million gallons that we don't need into the system out there. So we continue to work on that. It'll be at least a topic of discussion in rate case studies that we do over there, and there's a discussion as we go forward down there. In itself, 3.15 is a fantastic number, but you still have the unaccounted for there. You know, whether we're losing it by leakage or unmetered connections, it's still to be determined at this point over there. But if you look at last year, which was the fourth, really, 4 of the last 5 years had been drought years, but last year was, I would say, a moderate to extreme drought year. We're about 635,000 gallons less to date than we were last year, the first 212 days of the year. So that part, I just wanted to bring that to your attention there. We are making progress on HexChrom, if you can believe it or not, over there. That's a long study, long background over there. DEP has stepped up to the plate up on this down there, and at their own cost, they've put 5 monitoring wells on Bowdish Drive, basically from the lower end all the way up to Wagner Motors up on Bowdish Drive over there. And what we find on that, on samples taken on June 8th, is that you pick up the limits are very low at the low end of Bowdish Drive. They come up dramatically high as you go between Phoenix and the Wagner properties. You get 2,100 parts per billion at that point. You get 1,800 parts per billion at Wagner Motors. So in the next 30 days, what we're going to do, or I should say DEP is going to do, is put 3 to 5 more wells on Plantation Street and by the City Farm Pond, which is over by Great Brook Valley, Route 70, to try to determine the exact source. Now, we as a town cannot do that. We can't really go in the city of Worcester or on private property. So DEP has stepped up at their cost. There's no cost to the town of Shrewsbury to do this. We can kind of clearly see the direction of flow. The direction of flow is coming from Worcester, cutting across the front of where the tabletop bakery is, in the southwest corner, Bowditch, in a southwest line heading over to Lake Quinsigamond. We can see that there. It drops off dramatically as you hit the Bowditch Drive, which we confirm at our 6.2 and 6.5 wells. we get a finger of it coming to our wells that break off about 70 to 90 parts per billion. We pick up at the property line like that. But we pretty much now get the direction of flow up on that. We do have our vendor for biological set up between September 15th, I think it's October 27th, to start pilot testing on site. We put in a new 4-inch well because we needed a larger diameter well to get the pumping and filtering equipment in, because we have to run it for 3 months. 1 month for the bacteria to acclimate, 2 other months to get samples up on that there. And I've talked to the board before on that I think that biological is, if we're going to go that route, is the way to go. From my experience in talking to the utilities in California, Los Angeles, Glendale, out there, folks working on the Hinkley Plume, Pacific Gas and Electric, is that a lot of people use the ion exchange, but everyone in Southern California's experience hazardous waste amounts. What do you do with this? A lot of them bring it to platers in the LA areas. We don't have that. We don't have that luxury right here. So we can get a low amount of waste on this, and the beauty of this is that you can do multiple contaminants at the same time. This is how the future of water treatment's going. It's been used in Norman, Oklahoma, at the University of Oklahoma. They had between 70 and 90 parts. They got it down to 5. They did it at 2 large, mid to large cities in Southern Cal, same type of setup out there. Out in California, a lot of that, and the same in Oklahoma, a lot of that is natural rock formation besides industrial. So they get chromium-3, chromium-6, sometimes off rock formation, so they're treating that down there. Norman, Oklahoma, high arsenic, so they did arsenic, nitrate, and HexChrom together on the same, on that. They had a major arsenic problem in Norman, Oklahoma, that they treated for. And again, these processes, they started it for nitrate and arsenic, and then they found out, hey, this works with HexChrom, and that's how a lot of discoveries come in the scientific field there. You try one thing and you just kind of discover, oh boy, it works with something else. So we're going to be looking at that. We got our new 6.5 well drilled. It's been tested. We're trying to get that online. There was a delay in the some of the variable frequency drives to come in. So what we've done now is that, a little hard to believe, we got a spare drive from the town of Dedham that they were getting rid of. We've got it wired in temporarily, so we're going to try to run that, because we're telling our equipment won't be until October. So we're trying to get that. That will take some of the wells that have high mag, the higher hex, we can take them off or minimize their usage on that. Because the new well, we can get up to $2.5 million out of that well, but we run in between $1.5 million and 2. So our process is, work with the state on monitoring wells on that. They gather information. We'll see where that goes. They're working hard to get the source. Where that leads, I mean, who knows with that. We got pilot testing set up for this fall for 3 months over there. We've got a new well drilled in. We've got the vault, the piping duct work in, so we're hoping to get that in, get started within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then when the permanent stuff comes in October, we'll have the permanent electrical drives in. Secondly, we signed a contract to do exploratory work on Sewell Street to get a second well there, hopefully to get about $600,000 out of that. So we get our sources away from the HexChrom, away from the mag over there. The new well, by the way, had 0.0 for manganese in it, so 0 picked up on that, and 0.1, for HexChrom. So those are good numbers. Obviously, numbers can go up as wells get more used, but at least to start, that's what we're looking at that point over there. In the manganese, we're still, we bounce up and down. Sometimes we're at 0.2, 0.4, 0.3. It depends what wells we have on and stuff like that. But it's been better somewhat this summer because we haven't had the demand. We hadn't run as many finished water pumps, which, again, creates more disturbances, more turbulence in the system out there. So we've been fortunate in that part over there. And I think that's about it.
Okay.
I try to be brief.
Questions for members of the board? Mr. DiPaolo.
Bob,
Yes, Mo.
are there monitoring wells along the properties where Garapi plating used to be, and those buildings that were involved in the lawsuit when we put the original plant in?
There are some monitoring wells when they sold the property at Garapi Platers, but what I'm told from the state, and Tetra Tech was the person when they were selling the property, was the wells aren't overly deep. So we might not be picking up, I think I've told the board before, HexChrom has a specific gravity of 7.2, which means it's 7.2 times as heavy as water, so it goes deep. Those wells, I'm sorry, the monitoring wells that we put on Bowditch Drive, that's 180 feet and 110 feet, just to give you some idea on the depth of that over there. I think the ones I'm being told on the old Garrity plays with 30 to 40 feet. So it's possible that we can miss it or just pick up a trace. I think they picked up like 12 to 14 parts per billion up on that down there. I mean, that looks like the likely, it's coming from that direction, but I can't say for sure that that's the exact source until we get more information. But that's the direction of flow is from Plantation Street coming toward us, you know. And we're hoping it's still not active. It seems to be a mature plume from what we can see, but, you know, we need some more information up on that.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from members, any other questions from members of the board? I have a few for you, Bob. So just, I think to help people understand, we talk about unaccounted for water frequently.
Yes.
Can you just back up a minute and go back to the master meter and just how we compute unaccounted for
Right.
water?
Unaccounted for water is basically when we pump water, we meter it. And then at the end point, we meter at customers' homes. So in theory, those two numbers should jive over there. It happens that sometimes there's errors over there. So what we do, and what we're going to start actually on August 22nd, is we're going to recalibrate all our meters again. We're going to start at the source. Like I say, is if you're off at the source, that number exponentially grows greater during the system. If you're off 2 or 3% there as it goes through each step, you add that percentage so you can be off a high number over there. Unaccounted for water also is water leaks. It's hydrant flushing. When I look at some of these charts, some of the numbers look high, but I say, you know what, that's when we were ice picking. We had a lot of hydrants open in the low. That's all, doesn't run through meters, customer meters over there. So you have that. There could be inaccuracies at booster stations and meters that we're going to recheck over there. Then you got the end source, the customer meters over there. There's always some errors in there. There's leaks on service lines, customer service lines, and there's leaks out in the main there. Unaccounted for water is also, and we try to tabulate everything. When they sweeping streets, we try to keep tab on that. If there's fires, we try to keep stuff with the fire department, how much is used, how often they open up hydrants, that type of thing, our own hydrant flushing program. So there's a variety of items on that. The state recommends 10%. There's a good number of water suppliers that are at 10%, certainly in the state there. There's higher ones like ourselves over there. I think the average is around 15 to 18 in the state, if you went statewide on that there. But we're higher than that. And again, you know, yeah, everyone says we're well-run and stuff, but the number is the number. You know, the number's got to get down. You know, it doesn't do any good saying you're doing everything right. You know, so either we're wrong on the numbers, or we have a physical leak, or we have a physical interconnection with someone. But we know it's been going on since at least the 1960s, through a couple predecessors of mine and myself, and each person has taken a look at it and hasn't come up with any different on that down there. I mean, that being said, I mean, I'm still going to stress the point that I'm going to try to do everything I can to get that number down. Because, again, whenever you get a Water Management Act permit or anything else, people say, hey, get your unaccounted for water down before you ask for any more water, before you do that, which makes sense. If you're losing water, you can't account for it. Don't ask us for more. Don't put more growth in. Don't do this until you get your own house in order. So, yeah, we deal with that, and we take it seriously over there. And I think it would be a topic of discussion, at least, you know, in rates at some point in time. It's like, you know, if you're losing a third of your water, you know, what is the town doing over there?
So in your opening remarks, the unaccounted for water was fairly static from last year to this year?
Yeah.
So does that, I mean, does that give us any clues,
Well,
the
I
fact
think
that the overall use has gone down so dramatically,
Yeah.
but the unaccounted for remains
Yeah, I
static?
think it's good and bad. It shows that it's constant. It shows that even when we go down, it stays. When it goes up, it stays about the same. It fluctuates with the flow. So whatever it is, it's pretty steady. And I said even years ago, if you really think about it, there was no treatment plant. The wells wasn't there. The billing system that they had was all by hand. And we say it's the billing system. It's Munis. Well, they had the same problem with two other systems that they used over there, different people the personnel have changed too. It's the same issue that's continued on over there, right? And the wells were in different places. The wells were on Oak Street and South Street, and they still had a problem, and there was no centralized treatment. So if I say it's these lines here, well, these lines weren't in place. There was nothing there in the 1950s and 60s. It came in after that over there.
Can I follow up on that?
Sure.
So, and I know this isn't an easy thing. It's not like you just go out and, dig a hole and figure it out. But it does seem to be indicating that, the problem is, as you say, potentially in really old infrastructure.
Yes.
The same problem is probably, or at least seems to be pointing that way. We've
Yes.
tried new approaches, new technology, new wells, new everything, but same problem. So wouldn't an approach be, plan B, to focus on those areas where
Right.
that have existed since pre-1950?
Right.
There's
And
some
that's why we
infrastructure
focus a lot on Edgemere more.
Yeah.
But I think what we have to do is that we have to get, I have a meter bid out this week, August 10th, actually. We have to finish off all these meters, and then I really have to get these meters officially into all these zones. We did it just as the grant thing. And then we might have to sub-meter inside these zones. In other words, we'll know, and get the monthly billing. That's going to be another thing. When I'm doing quarterly, I got the 2-month lag. Once we get the monthly billing, I can match up what we're pumping to that month right down there.
So that delta in those numbers is what would tell you that there's a particular problem in that, and
Right.
you know already that the infrastructure there is very old.
Right.
So you might
Right.
be able to.
In some of those zones, there's only one booster to get it in. So there's only one reading. So of the numbers that match, that we might say, okay, let's divide the zone into 2 or 3 areas. Let's get in that and see where it is. Is it in that? And spend our time there. So that's what we really have to do. No one has really done that before because it's difficult, one, it's an expense, too, but at some point in time, someone's got to bite the bullet and say, we got to do something other than just talk about it. And we have to get in there and do it down there. But like I said, I want to make you folks, as the water commissioners, aware of that, and I'll let you know that we're trying to be diligent on that, and I'll keep you posted as certainly as time progresses.
Thank you. So my last question is, undeniably, there's been far less instances of brown water in people's houses this year than last. We attribute a lot that to the fact that the system isn't being drawn upon
Correct.
as heavily. But we have had some instances this summer. Can you categorize what the causes? Was it water main breaks and
Yeah.
or a variety?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. We've had Lynch working up on Route 9. They hit a line. It was around midnight in front of Scrub-a-Dub.
Yeah, Lake Street. Okay.
Yeah, around Lake Street, so that would affect Lake Street, Crescent Street, all that side area. And then, it was last week, I got the call, it was 10 minutes of 12, they always seem to be midnight, but they were trying to dig for their new stanchion at the corner again of Lake and Route 9 over to the Buffalo Wild Wings, and they tore right through the main, right down there. And that's only one valve to shut everybody off, so that again affected the whole thing. So it takes us another 2 to 3 days, we can get it back on to 10 minutes to 6 in the morning, working through the night on that thing with that. But again, the customers wake up tomorrow morning, no one's in the office yet, so what's going on?
So if folks want to report an issue
Yeah.
off hours,
It's usually the fire department,
and does
information on it.
your phone off hours forward over there? or?
It does not. But
Okay, so-
but we do have a message on that,
I
about
see.
that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe it's on the website too, if I'm correct.
Okay, so if people call the water department
Yeah.
off hours, they'll be directed to
Yeah.
call the fire department?
Right, correct. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
Well, on this table you gave us,
Yep.
that's percentages,
Percentage, yep.
which is nice to see because you can kind of isolate where the
Yep.
worst loss
And
is.
you can, it's by month
Can
also on that.
Can you give us that by gallons? So, I mean, it's hard to tell, and maybe you could tell us, if the reduced high is, look at November and December, say 5% in November, and the other two are in the 30s, but how much water is flowing through the reduced high as opposed to the other ones? That doesn't really tell us this. So
Yeah.
percentages
Yeah.
are interesting, but it's
Yeah.
all relative to how much is actually being pumped.
Yeah. Well, it comes out a loss of, when I calculate, about 988,000 gallons a day.
No, I know,
on that.
but I'm saying, is the reduced high pumping more water
No.
than the other two, or
It's our smaller of the three.
is the smaller?
The
But can you get
smallest.
numbers just so we can get order of magnitude?
Yeah, I can try to get you something for that, more
Don't,
sure.
I mean, just, even if it's close, just to get an idea of when it's
I can do
pumping,
that. Yeah.
whatever.
That's not a problem.
Okay, even if it's just for 1 month, just to get an idea of how
Yep.
much we're pumping.
Yep, that's fair enough, sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate
We'll
it.
have you in from time to time, because
pleasure.
obviously it's a matter that folks are very interested in, and, or if something pressing happens, we'll bring you right back.